Ukraine is ready to withdraw heavy forces from the Donbass it still controls if Russia pulls back. Russia rejects the most recent US offer on ending the war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Kremlin would not demand NATO to expand more. This is Russia's demand. So what is known about President Zelensky's concessions, and could this end the war in Ukraine? Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky proposed a plan with the US, calling it Ukraine's most detailed effort to end the war in Ukraine while safeguarding Ukraine's sovereignty. Zelensky said the updated proposal, refined through intensive consultations with US officials and shared with Western allies, outlines a phased diplomatic process beginning with the escalation and extending the post-war reconstruction and security arrangements. Ukrainian official, briefed on plan, said first phase would involve a comprehensive ceasefire, verified by international monitors and supported by satellite drone intel support. The plan envisions troop withdrawals from both sides and selected frontline areas and creation a demilitarized zone, provides Russian forces simultaneously pull back from corresponding position. The framework rules out unilateral Ukrainian concessions. Any reduction in forces or changes to military posture would be conditional on Russian compliance and subject to international verification mechanism. And security plan calls for binding legal guarantees for Ukraine backed by US and key allies. While it stops short of immediate NATO membership, the guarantee would include commitment to rapid military assistance in the event of renewed aggression, continued weapons supplies, intel sharing and joint training. Ukraine would retain a large standing army in peacetime with foreign support to sustain its capabilities. Territorial issues among the most continuous aspects, as the plan reaffirms Ukraine's claim to all territory while proposing that final status of Russian-occupied regions be negotiated following a ceasefire. Zelensky reiterated that Ukraine would not formally recognize Russian annexations and said any agreement affecting territory would require a referendum. The document also includes humanitarian provisions such as the exchange of prisoners of war, the return of forcibly deported Ukrainians, and mechanism to investigate war crimes. It calls for international oversight of critical infrastructure, including Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which Ukraine wants removed from Russian control or placed under international administration. Economically, the plan proposed a multi-year reconstruction and recovery program backed by Western governments, international institutions, and private investors. It links the gradual lifting of sanctions to verified compliance with the deal. Rather than offering immediate sanctions relief, Zelensky describes the plan as a realistic diplomatic framework rather than a formal settlement, acknowledging that major disagreements with Moscow remain. Russian officials said they are reviewing documents supplied by Washington but have not signaled readiness to accept the deal. The Kremlin has continued to insist on territorial concessions and limits on Ukraine's military. The unveiling of plan comes amid renewed US-led effort to explore whether to negotiate and end the war is feasible, even as fighting continues. Zelensky said the proposal demonstrates Kyiv's readiness to pursue peace, but stressed that Ukraine would not trade its security or independence. According to Ukrainian and US officials, the revised plan and updates on earlier proposals trimming issues while leaving some of the most difficult questions for future negotiations. Zelensky said the plan envisions robust security guarantees backed by US and European partners to prevent renewed aggression, along with international monitoring mechanism to oversee any ceasefire. He also reiterated any final deal involving territorial military concession would require approval by Ukrainian people. The Kremlin said it's still reviewing documents related to peace terms, but has offered no indications that Putin is ready to accept Ukraine's condition. Russian officials have confirmed to insist on demands that Kyiv has previously rejected. The announcement comes amid renewed diplomatic activity as Washington seeks to explore possibility for de-escalation while Ukraine presses for continued military support. While acknowledging the obstacles ahead, Zelensky said the revised plan demonstrates Kyiv's readiness to pursue peace, provided Ukraine's independence. Also, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said he would consider establishing a demilitarized zone as a part of a potential peace agreement with Russia, provided Moscow withdraws its forces from territory, according to Financial Times. Zelensky signaled his flexibility in Ukraine's negotiating position while emphasizing that any such arrangement would require full reciprocity from Russia and strong guarantees. The proposal, discussed as part of broader US-backed peace, would involve both sides pulling troops back from contested areas to create buffer zone, according to Financial Times. Zelensky stressed that Ukraine would not disarm or concede territory as a part of process, according to report. Ukrainian president also reiterated that any agreement involving territorial or military changes would need approvals through a referendum, reflecting a deep domestic sensitivity of this. The Financial Times says the discussions are linked to a wider diplomatic framework being promoted with the US, which include long-term security guarantees for Ukraine comparable to NATO's defensive commitments. However, key obstacles remain, including disagreements over territory and future of the Russian-controlled Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Russia, the newspaper noted, has continued to push its own terms for ending the war and has not publicly indicated willingness to accept this. Moscow has maintained control over large portions of eastern and southern Ukraine since launching its full-scale invasion in February 2022. Meanwhile, Russia plans to push for changes to a US-backed peace plan for ending the war, viewing the proposal as a starting point rather than a final deal, according to Bloomberg. The plan, drafted by Ukraine with help from US, lays out steps toward a ceasefire and long-term commitments, but Russian officials believe it does not meet many of Moscow's demands and leaves major issues unresolved, according to Bloomberg. Rather than rejecting the proposal outright, Russia is expected to respond with its own list of changes. Moscow wants clearer limits on Ukraine's future military and assurances that NATO will not expand further toward Russia. Russia is also pressing for clearer terms on Western sanctions and the use of frozen Russian assets. Another issue is language right for Russian speakers in Ukraine, which Russian officials say are not adequately addressed. Ukrainian leaders have described the proposal as their most realistic effort to end the war. Russia, however, sees the document are too closely aligned with Ukraine's position. Russia's foreign ministry publicly criticized Bloomberg report, calling it inaccurate, highlighting the sensitive nature of negotiations. That's all for today. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and glory to Ukraine.